Okay, so first of all, thank you for being here on a Friday. If you feel during my presentation, and this is rule of engagement, if you feel this is boring, there's a party outside next to glass. Okay, so you can go there. First of all, do you want English or Portuguese? Or shall we continue in English? For me, it's the same. So, probably in English. Okay, let's stick to English. So, this is the title of my session. Helped with ChatGPT, by the way. Everyone uses ChatGPT nowadays. And is this working? Yep. And like I was introduced, I'm Pedro Sousa, square, or +2 today, right? I'm a tech lead at Valtech. I'm a Microsoft Azure MVP for the past 6 years. If you know, or if you don't know what Microsoft MVP program is, after the session, reach out and I'll explain a little bit what we do. Basically, we're guys that love tech and do stuff for community, so that's me. Also, I'm a team member of TEDx Porto. I don't know if you have ever heard about TED Talks. So we host one of the 20th biggest TEDx events in the world, which is TEDx Porto. I've been a member for the past 7 years, I think, something like that. I've lost count. Anywho's, like I said, I worked at Valtech, and to give you a sense of what Valtech is, these are some of our customers. I haven't put there all of the logos, otherwise we'll have 2 or 3 or 4 slides of logos, but you can see several brands there that you know of. To give you a sense of size, we're spread across multiple countries with 61 offices all over, 22 countries, and more than 5.5K people working on the company. So several of these brands that you've never heard of, like for instance that one, Vanderlande. Have you guys shopped in Amazon? I went upstairs and I saw a package from Amazon, right? So if you shop on Amazon, they have distribution centers, right? A lot of them worldwide. And those distribution centers, they use those conveyor belts where they separate. They are done by Vanderlande. Have you ever traveled by airplane? I don't know, to Porto City, for instance, or to England, to Heathrow, or to Turkey, or to the Netherlands, Schiphol. The conveyor belts that separate our luggage are from these guys. So names that you don't never have heard of, but they are really, really big. What we do for them? Well, my side of the company, my business unit, we mostly work on B2B or B2C portals. So we develop a lot of portals for these customers. Nowadays, if you want to go to the Germany and select a car and select the color of the car and all of the extras, etc., it's us. We did it. Okay. Also, I'm one of the organizers of the Azure User Group for All. We do monthly meetups. 1 month it's online, so if you want to join, you can watch online. The other month we do it in Lisbon at Microsoft headquarters in Lisbon, and we're always looking also for good speakers. So if you want to deliver a session, just reach out and we'll see what we can do. But going to the session, going to the topic that we're here to talk about, how many of you are developers? I probably should have said, how many of you are not developers, right? So, what you do, and yes, these are my drawings, not my son's. You have developers that commit, push code, right? Regardless of, I heard that you use GitHub and GitLab. I also heard that you use AWS. Man, it's the same, it's cloud, right? And source control, anything else, right? And when you commit your code and you push your code, it goes to something, Azure DevOps or GitHub, right? And on that something, you run a pipeline or you run a GitHub action workbook. And basically you have a pipeline that builds your solution. Then you have a pipeline that deploys your solution. It's deployed somewhere in the cloud or on-prem or whatever, right? Well, but on a project, you don't have one developer, right? You have multiple developers that do exactly the same. How many of you have waited on a queue for a build and one of your colleagues is doing a long running build and you're there, not doing nothing, waiting for your code to be built and deployed? Well, I work for a very big company, so we don't have a developer team. We have multiple developer teams. And then that happens, right? You get frustrated and you start arguing with your colleagues. Hey, can you cancel your build because mine is fast, 5 minutes and you're taking half an hour or more, right? That happens a lot. So that's the problem. Back in the day, yeah, that's an old computer, like me, I'm an old guy, working in IT for more than 30 years, so yeah, been a long time. Back in the day of the data center, where I came from, and using stuff like, for instance, have you heard about SourceSafe? Does it ring a bell? Someone is nodding. I regret it. I also know the name and work with it. Yeah, painful, completely painful, believe me. But TFS, have you heard about TFS? TFS was the predecessor of Azure DevOps, or DevOps. Okay, it was on-prem, a server. You had installed the server to do the builds, and installed next to it a machine with some RAM, with some CPU to do your builds. And usually you would install 3 or 4 agents, so you could do 4 parallel builds at the same time, depending on the hardware. Then came virtual machines, and then we transformed that machine into a virtual machine. But again, we had the same problem. We could do X amount of parallel builds, right? That's old days, right? So nowadays, what do we do and how do we solve this problem? Microsoft, either on GitHub or Azure DevOps, Microsoft has what they call Azure pipelines or GitHub agents to do your builds. I know that you don't work with Azure DevOps, but to give you an idea, we have an amount of parallel jobs that you can run. And that amount depends on how much parallel jobs you pay. Yeah, there's a license for that. Microsoft loves licenses, right? So you pay for a license for a month to have X amount. If you want X amount, you pay X amount of licenses, okay? And that's a bottleneck. And one thing that people that work with GitHub and with Azure DevOps always ask, yeah, but the solution is to host your own agents to build, right? And why doesn't Microsoft provide, like, for instance, when you go to AWS and you choose an EC2 instance, you can select if you want Windows or Linux, right? You can select the SKU, etc. Microsoft has the same for virtual machines. So why hasn't Microsoft provided a way that you go to the marketplace and select, hey, I want an agent, and you have the image? The reason is simple. It has to do with licensing. If Microsoft did something like that for Azure DevOps or for GitHub, it would mean that it was software distribution, because those images, those virtual machines are packed with software capabilities, right? If they distributed it on a marketplace, they would be distributing that software, so they have to pay royalties. So Microsoft doesn't do that. But what they do, they provide us with their runner images, GitHub. Everything is here. Everything that you need to build Linux, Windows, or Mac OS build machine, it's here. And that's what we're going to see, how to use this, okay? So, I'm going to use Linux flavor, okay? I'm going to use Ubuntu. And Microsoft provides, from that repo, provides 3 flavors, or, well, 2 flavors. It has an Ubuntu Minimal, which is really, really small. My pipeline running a Ubuntu Minimal takes about 13 minutes to run. So I'm going to put it running locally on my machine now. Okay, you're going to see the creation of this image, this golden image that I'm going to use later to create a virtual machine skill set. Okay. They also provide with full-flagged Ubuntu 2022 or 2020, they have both. Windows, Mac OS also, but the full Mountie, it will take almost an hour to build, okay? It's a lot, yeah. It's a golden image. You build once, and then you use it, right? So who cares if it takes 1 hour? What I do actually is I have a trigger or a schedule, a cron job schedule on the pipeline that runs this monthly and runs it on a Sunday. Nobody's working on Sunday, right? So let it create the golden image and update my virtual machine skill set agents to do the job for me. This is CLI to build the virtual machine skill set. Again, I know that you work with AWS. AWS also has auto-scaling, EC2, right? So you can also use EC2 instances to do something similar. Of course, you're not going to use Azure CLI. You're going to use CloudFormation or AWS CLI to build this, but the principles are the same. For Microsoft, the only thing that you need to be aware of are those things that I've highlighted. Well, the first one is just the image. I have to reference the image that I want, that golden image that I built before, and then 2 small things. Azure allows you to auto-maintain your virtual machine. So Windows updates, system updates, etc. The platform can handle that for you. Here, we don't want to do that. We don't want the platform to update my software inside of the machine. I'm going to do that. So it has to be upgrade policy mode manual. The other option is about the way that the virtual machine distributes the load, distributes the jobs running on the agent. I want it to be uniform. So one job for each instance that I have available. If there's no more instances available, create another one and put the job there, okay? Otherwise, what would happen would be that one job would go for the first machine, and then if you have CPU and memory, the second job would go to the same until it was full, and then to the next, and then to the next, okay? We don't want that. So, what's left? I have to, and this is Azure DevOps, I'm sorry. You don't work with it, but it's similar. What you have to do then is register the virtual machine skill set pool on your Azure DevOps. As simple as that. Go to the organization or to the project settings, select agent pools, add a pool. It will list the virtual machine skill set pools that you have available for that subscription, and then give it a name, and then use it on the pipelines. Just that, and it's ready. Okay? So, yeah. That's it. No, it's not. Right? We want something else. We want more, right? So let's see more. Let's drop from the presentation. And sorry, like I told you, I'm an old guy, so now I need my glasses. And let's do this, because we all want to see this. By the way, I forgot something here, which is valuable. So, nothing in the sleeve, right? I only have there Ubuntu image, a minimal image, right? And what I'm going to do now is use my laptop to build my golden image, 13 minutes, give or take. then build the virtual machine scale set, and while it's running, we're going back to the presentation, talk a little bit more on the rest, because I don't want to do this from my machine, right? So, like I've shown you previously, what I have to do is I'm going to pick up a PowerShell module from Microsoft. This is provided on that GitHub repo. I'm going to show you the repo in a sec. Import this module, and now I'm going to build an image called .NET Coimbra. So let's paste this here, and this will take about 13 minutes, give or take, to build. And while it runs in the background, let's take a look at what Microsoft provides us with. So can you see, or do you want me to put a bigger font size? Bigger? Like this. Is it better? Okay. So basically what they have a PowerShell script, the one that I was using. No, I don't want this. And this PowerShell script, like I told you, it has some images here that they provide out of the box. These images you can use. The basis for these runner images, or the technology behind this, is Packer. Have you heard about Packer? No? Packer is kind of a descriptive language where you can say, I want to pack this software and install it, and you say how to install it, and then you can reference scripts. Let's see, here on the image folder, we have Linux, Mac OS, and Windows, and inside of those folders, we have that Packer file. Let's choose, for instance, this one. Let me put this bigger. So this is Packer. Okay? It describes it's not Terraform. It's similar. It's similar. You're describing, instead of describing infrastructure, like Terraform or CloudFormation or Bicep or ARM templates. Who does ARM templates anymore? Anywho. You're describing the install of software. You're describing, in this case, where are the scripts, what's the image name, yada, yada, yada. A bunch of environment variables for my subscription in this case, for what virtual machine it needs to create, etc., etc., etc. What it's going to do is it's going to create a resource group. Do you know the concept of a resource group? Well, in AWS, you have an account, right? An account in Azure is a subscription. One thing that you don't have on AWS, and yes, I've worked with AWS, and my company also works with AWS and Google Cloud, you name it. Anywho, on AWS, you don't have a separation, you don't have like a box where you put things, resources, right? You have EC2 instances, and then you have to see the disk, you have to go to the volumes, and if you want to see the network interface card, you have to go to another place. I still remember that from AWS, right? You can see here a lot of things, for instance, the size of the disk here, this is the size 86 gigs for disk. This one is really big. Yada, 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 yada. A lot of shell scripts that are being provisioned on the machine. Yeah, I use yada, yada, yada a lot. And then these are capabilities. So for this image, I'm adding some common packages to APT, AZ copy, which is a tool that we use to copy files and folders within Azure, CLIs for Azure, CLI for Azure DevOps or Bicep, and then you see AWS also, so the tools to work with AWS. So I can use this image, this virtual machine scale set that I'm going to create, I can use it to deploy to AWS, deploy to Azure, to deploy to Google. Google is down there on the list. Here you see GitHub CLI at the bottom, right? So these are my capabilities. And then on the repo, they provide you with a bunch of scripts that actually install those capabilities. For instance, do you guys work with, I don't know, Node.js?
Wow. A couple of projects here.
I'm sorry for you.
Yeah, me too.
This week I was preparing, side note, I was preparing a virtual machine skill set for one of our teams, and they have a bunch of packages, NPM packages that they need. Cypress, I don't know, a lot of them. So when you do a build on your pipeline, we have an install phase, install NPM, and install all of the packages, right? It takes a lot of time. No, we install it on the base image, and it's already there for them. And they don't need the install NPM phase anymore because it's already on the machine. And it's painful, really painful to install it here. Anywho's, so this is bash script, right? It's a shell script. It's installing modules, iterating somewhere or from somewhere. You see here these node modules and get the name of the module and do npm install, global, yada, yada, yada. Where does that thing comes from? It comes from a JSON file. Where is it? Toolset, this file. So in this toolset, I tell, for instance, where Python comes from. So that's the manifest from the GitHub of Python, where I can get the versions. We can open it to see. Let's click here. So as you can see, latest version is 3.12.0. Also tells me if it's a stable version or not, and the several architectures and where the download URL is, right? So Microsoft uses this to select the architecture, the platform, and the versions that I want installed. Back in the day, installing multiple versions of Python was painful, really painful. Anywho's, this is, and I got to stop saying anywho's. This is where you describe your tools, where to get those tools, what versions do you want, and this is where we customize also our build agent. For instance, here, they're installing Azure Modules 9.3, and Azure Modules latest version is 10.3 or something like that. So I can deviate from Microsoft agents. When I say Microsoft, it's DevOps and GitHub. I can deviate and I can upgrade my versions if I need the newer version, right? This is fun here. And let me scroll a little bit down because you mentioned Docker. It takes time on a pipeline to push the images from the Docker registry, right? Save your time. Do it on an agent. This is going to preload on my agent all of those Docker images. So when you do your pipeline, when you run your build, it's already there. And I can also select which version. For instance, you see on Alpine, I have 3 different versions. If you know which images you need, you can put it here, right? Just to check something, let's see if my PowerShell, oh, come on, I forgot this. Now it's going to start counting the time. I already have the resource group created, and the first thing it asks, do you want to delete everything in there, or do you want to use the same? And I totally forgot about this. Well, let's leave it running, and let's see if it finishes or not. You can take my word for it, it finishes. Well, this is Microsoft Runner images, but what I do is I have my own custom low-fat version of Microsoft Runner image. Why is that? Because I don't need all of those capabilities. If I don't use Ruby, why install Ruby? If I don't use AWS, why install AWS client, or right? So what I did was, or what we do is, we customize the tool set. You see, this is my file. It is low fat. Also, I'm going to customize my own Packer file. This is the capabilities I'm installing on my Packer file. Small list, only with what I need. What's the advantage of doing something like this? First, if you have a small disk, who remembers the size of Microsoft disk that I've shown you before? 86 gigs. Mine is using a 30 gig disk. And on that 30 gig disk, I'm using 3 gigs for the capabilities. The rest is for the pipeline to download the code and build the binaries and have enough space to do the work. I bet I could reduce it to less than 30, but Microsoft doesn't allow disks, OS disks, smaller than 30. So yeah, I'm using the smallest one. And with this, you can interrupt me anytime if you want to, okay? And with this, I create a pipeline. So this is a YAML pipeline for Azure DevOps. Pretty similar to GitHub Actions workflows. It's all YAML. GitLab, I don't remember anymore. It's forgotten on my memory, fortunately. Just my personal opinion. So if you look at this job, the first thing I do is on the agent, and this is not my virtual machine scale set agent, okay? This is a regular Azure pipeline agent, okay? I'm using that to build my golden image. The first thing I do, my first step, is to clone Microsoft repo to that agent to start the build. Why do I do this? Simple reason. Let them do the heavy lifting of updating the software and the capabilities, etc., on their repo, and I just benefit from that. And it's always up to date. Okay? So I start by cloning the repo, then I copy a bunch of files which were customized, for instance, my tool set, my Packer file. Then, another thing that this repo uses is Pester. Have you heard about Pester? Pester tests? You don't use Pester tests? Okay. So, what's Pester tests? Basically, it's going to test if that, in this scenario, if that specific tool is installed or not. Because I can run an installer file, and it can break, right? So I need to make sure that it's running. And if you see there, I'm removing tests. Why? Because I don't need the Android tests. I don't need the browser tests because I'm not installing browsers, Firefox, Chrome, anything on this specific agent. I could, for Cypress tests, I could install which browsers to use then in the Cypress, right? Then the rest I'm going to a key vault, getting my secrets, getting my principals, so getting stuff that I need to connect to, and then, I think you remember this, right? I imported a module of PowerShell, and then I run a PowerShell command. It's exactly the same. So instead of doing this on my laptop, I'm doing this on a pipeline. And If I'm talking about capabilities, one of the things that this Microsoft provided out-of-the-box repo has is a markdown file with the list of capabilities. If you go to the Git of Microsoft and you select one of those images, you'll see an empty file that has all of the capabilities installed. This report is created at the end of the build of the image. So what I do, I just grab that file and I put it as a report on the pipeline execution. So I can see this execution, I'll show it to you. This execution has these capabilities with these specific versions. Okay? It helps me track what we have. Then the rest is a lot of Azure mumbo jumbo, creating a gallery to create an image definition in this case, and then create an image version. You have something similar in AWS also. I remember back in the day using golden images to create the EC2 instances. So this is that specific step. And then I'm going to create a virtual machine scale set agent, so a VMSS. I'm going to test if it exists. If not, I'm going to create it. You probably remember this from the slideware. Exactly the same. So I test it on my machine, put it on a pipeline, and now the pipeline works. And this is the nice part. One thing that Microsoft allows on Azure, and I bet AWS also allows the same, if you update a golden image, you don't need to destroy your virtual machines, you just need to update them. This takes 4 or 5 seconds to do. Okay? And basically that's it. So let's see this and how it works. Let me check our build. Yeah, see, it's installing Markdown PS module for PowerShell. Now it's doing the tests. It's going at this moment to the sources, getting the sources, and it's doing the build here on my machine to my Azure subscription. Okay. Okay, I forgot to open this. So this is my private personal GitHub repo. That code is here, basically. And this is my pipeline, and you can see here, I've run this pipeline this morning just to show you, hey, it's fresh, run from today. And it took 53 minutes. So that's why I'm not going to do that here. But what this has done, and let me go back. Yes, sometimes it fails. Why? Microsoft introduced a new capability, so I had to check, hey, there's something new. Go to the Microsoft repo, compare their files with mine. Oh, this one is new, and it's missing. Add it, run again. And basically, well, this is something you're used to, right? Executing a pipeline and see this generate image took a lot of time. This is the part that usually takes a lot of time. The rest was just creating or updating a virtual machine scale set, and takes a few seconds. What's the benefit of this? If I need to update one of my agents, my agent pool, when my developers are working, it means that they stop working for, in this case, 21 seconds. It's 21 seconds that they can't build anything. Go for a coffee. And what this pipeline has done was basically this. So that agent pool POC, it's my gallery. My image definition, it's this build agent Ubuntu that you see here. These are versions. So yes, I do keep versions. If something goes wrong, I can roll back to a previous version. Even if I have to do it manually with CLI, it's possible. I could also do it on the pipeline, but I usually prefer to roll forwards instead of rolling back. And this is my virtual machine agent. So let's check this. See, this is a side note. This is a resource group, one of those divisions, right? You've seen 2 different resource groups. If I go to my virtual machine skill set, how many instances do you see running? 0. Why? Because nobody is building. Costs. So when you have, back in the day when you had a virtual machine or you had a machine, physical machine on your data center, it was costing money. When we moved to the cloud, at the beginning, the same principles. We had a virtual machine there and a bunch of agents installed on that machine. It was always running and always costing money. Then we started, and when I say we, I'm not saying we at Vaultec, I say we in IT. We started having cron jobs to, hey, let's boot up the machine before my developers start, so 7 a.m., and let's shut it down at 8 p.m. Yeah, so there's an incident in production, and someone needs to run a build at 9 p.m., and no agents available. And you're in the middle of a crisis, and what the hell is happening? And yeah, the agents are stopped. Come on. I don't have time for this, right? In this scenario, I have 0. The boot up of a new instance is about 3 minutes, the most. The less is 1.5. It depends on the infrastructure on Azure. It depends on the infrastructure on Azure, right? It depends on the availability of the cloud to provide you with new virtual machines. And at this time, it's almost 8 p.m., so it's about 8 hours less to the west coast of the US, so Seattle, which means there's a lot of guys are working at this moment in the United States. I don't care, I'm using West Europe as a region, so it was a joke.
Have a game.
Come on. So let's see this working. For instance, let's run this pipeline. So my pipeline is waiting for an agent to be available, which means that in a few minutes, if we go here and we refresh a few times, we'll see instances coming up. Then, okay, you create instances, and now how do you destroy those instances? On specific case of Azure DevOps, when you register the pool, there's a setting there where you can say how much time an instance is idle before it destroys that instance. And I've set it to 15 minutes. So if in 15 minutes there's nothing going on my subscription, it will delete those instances. Another thing that I tell there is the amount of instances, the max limit it can create. And I've set it to 10 instances. Unfortunately, this is my personal subscription, and I have limits for parallelism. As an MVP, I've requested Microsoft to increase my limits a little bit, so I'm unlimited on public projects. So if it's public, I can run as many parallel jobs. Unfortunately, when I created this project, I created it as private. So yeah, 2. I have to wait. See, I have a pipeline with 3 jobs, so it needs 3 agents, 3 instances, 1 for each job, and it's already creating the instances. I'm almost without time, so let me go back here. Yeah, it's created my Coimbra image, first example. Let's create the virtual machine scale set from this. I don't like jumping from one place to the other in a presentation, but well, let's do this, and I done something wrong. I messed up my command. Where? Oh, yeah. I forgot to do this. I have to tell them which image I want to build. Sorry. It happens. So let's build your own virtual machine scale set. And let's see if my pipeline is already running. Demo gods, it's taking 3 minutes or plus. Eventually they will be created and the pipeline will start running tests on the capabilities. Meantime, because we don't have much time left, let me go back to the presentation. So, like I told you, we have multiple developer teams and we work for a lot of different customers, right? And here we have 2 approaches on how we create those virtual machine scale sets. One of the approaches is we have 1 virtual machine scale set for that specific customer for all of the projects. So we give it a SKU. SKU means CPU, memory, and amount of instances. We give it a higher value, so it's like a 1 ring to rule them all. The other approach is to use a fleet of virtual machine scale sets, because we have projects that have different needs for capabilities. An AI project doesn't need the same as a .NET project or whatever, right? So we use different virtual machine scale sets. They are smaller and they are more specific. Differences between these 2 models also. On the first one, for me it's easier to maintain because I have a central repo where my team does the updates and we provide to that customer, to that project or projects, 1 virtual machine scale set and it's all the same. For the other one, we give more independence to the teams. So each team forks our repo and then they can tweak the capabilities as they need. The only thing I don't allow them to do is pull requests to the main repo, or I review it a lot before I accept those pull requests. And they have more liberty to do their own tweaking, which is also a problem when I update the main repo and I have to push my changes to theirs. Also, we have to see, hey, am I creating a breaking change? And we need to fix it, okay? And so basically that's it. Yeah, so just to finish up, you see the agents were created, they are still here. My pipeline executed successfully, and just for the sake of argument, run. And go back, and another team is going to also run a pipeline. I'm just going to put 2. I could put more, see, they are both running. Didn't take any time, right? Why? Because I have enough instances to run these jobs, so it's 1 or 2 seconds to start running. Also, our virtual machine skill set was created, and now we should have Sherry on top, our coimbra.NET image, and we have our virtual machine skill set pool for you guys to use. And that's it, folks.